Hi, it's Jessie. I'm back again, and it's a little cloudy today, so right now my tablet looks a little dark, but I'm hoping that you can see me. See behind me, this is my spot. This is where I like to come. Um, I come and I sit here and I read my Bible and, take notes, pray, talk to God, talk to other people. Um, I like this spot. It's nice and peaceful. So, I was going to do a word yesterday on Mark 8:15, where Jesus warned people to be careful, watch out for the yeast of the Pharisees and that of Herod. Um, God kind of dropped a better understanding of what he was saying in my heart after I had made the initial video. So I will come back and share with you. If you ever read Samson and Delilah, their story, then you know that Delilah, she set Samson up to be destroyed, right? But let me just give you a little brief recap of the story, okay? So Samson went to Gaza and spent the night there with a prostitute. And then word spread that he was in town, and the people of the town decided that they would kill him at dawn. But God woke him up in the middle of the night, and he tore down the door to the city gates and threw it off a big hill, right? Um, then they kept watching him. They kept watching him because they wanted to see, they can get to him, right? So they noticed that Samson was having affections for this girl, Delilah. And so they approached Delilah and they told her, if you'll find out the secret of his strength and how we can subdue him, then we'll make you rich. Each one of us will give you money. So this is where we find the yeast of the Pharisees, where they troll you and use the people around you against you, where they elevate the people around you against you. Um, some other revelations that God gave to me on this, right? Um, you know, Delilah asked him like 4 times for the secret of his great strength, and each time he lied to her, right? And at first he told her, if you tie me with seven fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, I'll become as weak as any other man. And then, after she tried it and was like, oh, the Philistines are upon you, wake up, that good cover story where they work together to make it look like she's still his friend just in case it doesn't work, you know. And then she tells him, you're making a fool of me, tell me the truth. So she wants him to think that he's done something wrong by not telling her. The second time he's like, if you tie me with new ropes that have never been used. And again, she tells him, all this time you're making a fool of me, you're doing me wrong. The third time, if you weave the 7 braids of my head into the fabric on the loom and tighten it with a pin, then I'll become as weak as any other man. And so she tries that, and Samson, the Philistines are upon you, still maintaining her cover that she's there for him. But then she says, when it doesn't work, how can you say that I love you when you won't confide in me? And she kept nagging him and nagging him and nagging. And she nagged him so much that, the Spirit of God actually left him because he stayed with this nagging woman who was only with him to destroy him, right? And so he tells her, if if you shave off my hair, because I've been consecrated to God, dedicated to God since the time of my mother's womb, and my hair has never been cut. So if you shave my head, then I'll become weak. And sure enough, he didn't have the Spirit of the Lord with him anymore, and it actually happened. Now, what Delilah did was shady, mind you, but Samson was kind of a fool for staying with her. God was warning him. God was letting him know that she wasn't on the up and up. And yet he stayed anyways, and he stayed in disobedience. So the Spirit left him because he was being disobedient. He wasn't listening to what God was saying to him, like, get away from these people. He was giving more credit to what she was saying. I love you. I wouldn't do something like that. As to giving credit to what God was saying. And in the end, they put out his eyes and locked him up in a prison and only took him out to entertain themselves with their uh, treasure that they had captured, the weakened, broken version of Samson. And so Samson prayed to God one last time, let me die with my enemies, give me strength to take them down, and I'll die with them, you know. And when I read this of Samson, I understand why it is that Jesus died on the cross. Uh, he hung around with these people. He tried to avoid the crowds. He tried to avoid the traps that were set before him. But oh, let's see, is it still working? Sorry for that. The big strong wind came and knocked it down. But he he had a Judas next to him. He had someone like Delilah that the authorities were paying to set him up, to catch him, to separate him from others, because Samson, Judas, he really played Jesus in the same way that Delilah played Samson. Jesus was turned against his disciples. Peter was the disciple that Jesus hated, but ultimately when Jesus saw through everything, Peter became the one who Jesus declared he was the rock that he would build his church upon. So um, some I can relate to this in some fashion. Let me tell you how I can relate to this. Um, all the people who came against me, in some way, shape, or form, they received something for it. When I was in school, they got a pass on their grades and a pass on attendance to target me. When my kids were being used, well, they also got passes on attendance and tardiness, but they also got employment with the schools. They got to be the substitute lunch ladies. They got esteemed positions. When God creates a table for you in the midst of your enemies, I have to wonder if that doesn't mean in the elevation of your enemies. It's as you see them going up and understanding that they're not there for you. You have to be careful of giving people place in your life that aren't there for relationship with you, but there to see what they can get out of you. And it's not always that they're using you. Sometimes it's just that they're being used by an authority, like the Pharisees and Herod. They're being used by an authority to do what they're doing. And, if you understand the nature of authority, the authority can't come in unless they have place. If they had harassed everybody without cause, they wouldn't be an authority anymore. And so they need cause. And in order to get cause, they get their hands dirty. They they mount up on footmen. It's because the authority, they're like horses, right? But when they don't have place to come in, then they mount up on other people and try to get place. They start creating false witnesses, and this is significant because, on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, a thing can be established. So, even if you're telling the truth, if you have 2 witnesses to say that you're not telling the truth, then the truth that you have is negated. And let's say it's the FBI wanting to question you. If you talk to the FBI and you lie to them, it's a crime, and you don't even have to be lying to be convicted of lying. All they need is 2 or 3 witnesses to say that you're lying, and that's why it's dangerous to associate with these people, to give them place. So it's kind of important to just choose to suffer for God. Let them do what they're gonna do. You can't always work with them because they don't always have your best interest at heart. You see, they were pointed in your direction. They have a problem with you because your God is bigger than their God. They have a problem with you because they can't defeat you. They have a problem with you because they can't control you. They can't get you to bow down to them. They have a problem with you for whatever type of reason, but they will make place in your life even when they have none. And while they're doing all this, while they're doing all this around you. When they're caught, they want to say, oh, she's a paranoid schizophrenic. You know, they want to make it look like it's the victim's fault. You know, it's Samson's fault. You know, it's Jesus's fault. You know, but after, you know, you put somebody through so much, they don't even care about having the truth come out. They just want it over and done with. So they just, you know, Samson said, let me destroy all my enemies and let me die. You know, Jesus said, just forgive them and let me die, you know. Either way, you know, we have the end of two of God's most anointed people ever placed on the earth. And there has to be a better way, you know. The problem in these situations is that you have a devil in your life, but it's real hard to see who the devil is. You know, is it the authorities who approached Delilah, or is it Delilah who approached the authorities with the snake? Who did what? Or maybe it's Azazel causing it all. Oh, you know, Hazel can be a real stinker butt, and she can use everyone around you to get to you in this fashion. So while Delilah might not have been against Samson to begin with, you know, she might have been approach to target him, and not just by the authority, but by someone else who didn't want to see Samson walking in his purpose. You know what I'm saying? Maybe there was somebody else who wanted Samson's place, who wasn't, you know, didn't have the character to hold what Samson held, and they thought that if they could kill him, then they could fake it. Right? They thought if they could kill him, they could get in his place, and their mouth would do the talking for them. You know, these Philistines, they're all talk, especially like Goliath, right? They just talk and talk and talk. They don't have the skills to be an actual warrior, right? They don't have the skills to be in authority, you know, taking care of the people, loving the people, making sure that the people are taken care of in the best possible way. No, they make sure that they maintain their power by putting people against each other, you know. So at the end of the day, you know, it's not them or me. I want to say, Samson, it's not the people or you. You know, there's a third option, you know, and it's real important to see the third option. The third option is to say, forget this nonsense and walk away from it all. Come out of your father's house like God told Abraham. Come out of your father's house. Leave all the mess alone. Let God handle it, because, you know, this is why vengeance belongs to God. You know, it's real hard to see who your enemy is, and your enemy is going to have power over you as long as you're giving them place in your life. So, you know, you have to come out of your father's house. You have to come out of your place of trouble. You know, you have to come out of the place of appearances and just begin again. You know, that's where Jesus' offer becomes real clear. You know, come to me. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. You know, he takes on your burden and gives you his, and he gives you a fresh start. You know, it gives me a real understanding of what it means to be born again. You know, sometimes you have to let everything die and walk into new life. You know, come out of your father's house, walk into new life. So I see lots of people running around here, walking around here, and I'm not quite sure how much longer I'm going to have any privacy for. So I'm going to cut this off, give you a nice shot of my beautiful site over here that I like to sit and look out at. And I'm going to say God bless and have a good day.